Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday and welcome to Cardano Live. I have Vuk with me today. Vuk is the product manager at Input Output for native assets and smart contracts. He worked on developing the ERC20 converter and he previously worked on Ethereum. And today on Cardano Live, we're going to talk about Cardano smart contracts, dApps, native assets, and what are the differences on Cardano? What's important for a developer to know? What is important for a user to know? Okay, and feel free to post some questions in chat. We will get to them later, kind of like an AMA sort of thing. But first, we'll have Vuk talk about it. Vuk, thank you for being here today. I very much appreciate you coming on Cardano Live. How are you doing, sir?
Thanks. Good. Very exciting times in general in the community. We are seeing some of the early launches, and those are picking up incredible traction. So yeah, exciting times.
It is exciting times. I was just looking on Cardano updates this morning, and there are 3,813 commits, which is record-setting. As far as I can remember, it's a record-setting number of commits on GitHub for Cardano, and you're one of those folks leading the charge, as well as many, many other community members, many other folks at Emergo and IOG. So we very much appreciate your work. Everyone loves the work that you do. I want to remind the viewers, go ahead and hit like and subscribe down below. Share this video with your friends. And if you're a developer developing on Cardano, or you know an entrepreneur who's interested, check out the links down below in the description. We have links to developer assets and resources, and that's some of the things that we'll be talking about today as well. So make sure you do that. And now we'll get on with Vuk. Oh, before I go on with Vuk, also remember, nothing on this podcast is ever financial advice. And Cardano Live will never ask you to send ADA. Okay, this is the real Cardano Live, and the real Cardano Live will never ask you to send ADA. We will never ask you to send assets, and we don't do giveaways, and we do not do giveaways in exchange for subscribers. We do not do that. Cardano Live, very professional podcast. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get back over to Vuk. Vuk, you've previously, like I said, you worked on Ethereum. Cardano is done differently. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Ethereum and Cardano both chose like different paths, and with different paths, there are different priorities, and with different priorities, of course, we need to expect different outcomes. And in general, those decisions are compounding over time. So it's very exciting to actually see like this progress being made on both of the networks, and actually being able to witness where we are going to get, and really see what's going to happen, because that's not something that anyone can currently certainly know what's going to end up happening in 2 years or 1 year.
Yeah, I think it's very clever how Cardano separated the native assets from the smart contracts. Now, in Ethereum, a token is in the form of an ERC20, and that's kind of rolled into the smart contract. Now, Ethereum is the premier smart contract platform. It's extremely good, extremely effective, extremely well developed. It is running into some bottleneck issues. It's getting weighed down a little bit. The gas fees are going up. Everyone's pretty well aware of that, but it is extremely good at running a smart contracts. Now on Cardano, the native assets are separate from the smart contract. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. In general, also like to give an overview on Ethereum. So Ethereum, of course, did choose to focus on smart contracts, and that was a very rational decision back in 2015, because at that point we had just a few chains that were like Bitcoin, that other like Bitcoin-like chains that were not actually even thinking about smart contracts. And well, Ethereum focused completely on smart contracts. So they said, instead of like trying to build tokens on the network, well, why don't we actually have a smart contract that is representing a token? And this is the ERC20 standard, which basically is how you define smart contracts in code for Ethereum. And then everyone was kind of okay with that standard, and some people started following that, and you had like a few implementations, and that was what actually went through on the Ethereum side. Now, on Cardano instead, Cardano had more time to actually develop smart contracts, native tokens. So it took a bit longer, but native tokens are on the larger side. And what that implies is that you can possibly make native tokens more efficient by actually implementing some stuff on the ledger layer. this cannot actually be done in a similar way on the Ethereum, because anyways, it needs to be a contract that is executed, and you have so much other complexity that is involved in that. Now, the nice thing about native tokens is that most of the time you don't even need to use smart contracts for many of the frequent use cases out there. So what happens is that you have like native tokens, and then you use the core infrastructure that the network has to do everything else. So that's very different from the Ethereum side, because instead of actually like running a smart contract and doing a method that is called transfer on Ethereum, what you're doing is basically you're sending a normal transaction on Cardano. And then we can focus on actually making those transactions more efficient. And it gives more power to the development teams. And it allows us also to decouple the problems into smaller problems that can be tackled individually.
Okay, and that helps with development because it allows you to separate the asset from the contract, or what I call, it's like the noun and the verb, but the assets are treated differently. Like we already have native assets, NFTs, various types of coins being deployed already on Cardano. Now, in the coming months, sometime later this year, the smart contracts will be deployed. What are some of the things a developer should be aware of? Let's say I'm a developer, for example, on Ethereum. I am not, but if I were a developer on Ethereum and I was coming to Cardano, what are the things I should look for or look out for as far as the smart contracts on Cardano?
Yeah, so definitely I should first learn about native tokens, because I'm going to be using native tokens inside my contracts. And then I need to like adapt on the way of thinking about first UTXOs, because those are, you have account model on Ethereum, so you need to like wrap your head around UTXO. And then like how to interact from Plutus with the native tokens. Also, there are so many features that people are not really talking about that are very powerful, like metadata. Those can be used for many of the use cases that people are using smart contracts on the Ethereum set for. So yeah, in general, it's very different. It does have like also a more powerful language, but also it does involve some complexity because of the language choice, which can be both powerful and it can maybe slow down adoption a bit. But at the same time, also let's think about the fact that in general, you're not going to have so many smart contract developers. You're going to have like maybe 1/10 of the smart contract developers and like the 9/10 web developers that are actually trying to leverage those smart contracts. So the question is, maybe it's better if you have like a few smart contract developers that are trained to actually build smart contracts, and they do that very well. And maybe you have like companies that are very specialized in that, and then you have like templates that you can use to actually do some particular things that are known that are frequently used, and do the rest of the work on the website and build the use cases, which is at the end what everyone wants.
Okay. Now, there's a few things that you touched on there that we can dig into. And one of them is, so with Cardano, there's the on-chain code and the off-chain code. And if a developer has off-chain code, that can run on the website. Is that correct? That can
It
run
depends
somewhere
on
else
what the
on the node?
developer wants. Yeah, depends on what the developer wants. So right now it's not going to run in the web browser, but at some point we have like projects that are currently ongoing that allow us to compile Haskell to something that can run in the web browser. But that's not something that developers should focus on right now. They should focus on first understand how Plutus smart contracts work, understand how to run those smart contracts, because the model is a bit different from Ethereum. So instead of having like just the node and calling the node directly, you have the Plutus application backend that makes your life much easier. And then you need to actually understand how to run it, how to run the smart contracts under that Plutus application backend, and in general understand how to architect those dApps. That's what I would focus on first. Lars is pushing out very good quality material that I think is picking up a lot of traction, and I trust that we're going to see many use cases, and this is just going to accelerate, because what's happening with the lecture is basically the number of developers is increasing, and that will have a compounding effect on the number of use cases that we are going to be seeing on the platform. And
yeah, because people are very creative, and we have no idea. As long as you give people tools, you give them flexibility, and you give them the structure to build it with, people are going to create all kinds of interesting stuff that we haven't even thought of yet. It's going to happen. It already has happened. Like, for example, the voting and the dust thing, where people are using dust to purchase NFTs, and they want to make sure it's a unique number. I don't know exactly how it works, but I have purchased NFTs where you send it to a specific wallet address, and there's a specific dust on the, let's say, 12.12345 ADA, right? And then it uses those Lovelaces to determine which one you're getting. And it's pretty cool. So, I mean, that was a very clever thing that affected both voting and NFTs, preliminary voting, not real Voltaire level voting. Now, you bring up an interesting point about training, and that Lars has videos out there, and we do have some links down below. I'll need to get some more links related to the training. Training can be a bottleneck. Like, sometimes there's only so much resources or human resources available to help train people. So the information has to be put out kind of in a broadcast method and say, hey, here's the information on how Plutus works, and you dig into it. So I guess what my question is, are you seeing a high demand? Are there a lot of developers coming to you looking for help?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the demand that high that we can't actually do it ourselves. So we are hiring a lot, but we also need like community members that are going to help us actually onboard new developers. So we need to like wait for the first batch of developers that will be helping other developers actually get on board. And that also is going to have a compounding effect. Now, all of this is happening because the incentives are clear. I mean, there are so many people on Cardano, and there are so many people that trust the network and that are part of the community. And those people are demanding for dApps. And developers are building dApps, and more and more developers will be building dApps. So I think this is just going to accelerate.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I could imagine you'll have developers who say, I'm going to make a Udemy video or a YouTube video that shows people how to plug Cardano via smart contracts, plug it into a video game, or plug it into a DEX, or plug it into a Shopify or something like that, right? And they'll figure all these things out, things that we do normally every day with money, games, electronic transactions. These developers are going to figure it out. Hopefully they'll make things like Udemy videos. We had Lovelace Academy on Cardano Live before. They will be working on it. IOG had some Udemy videos before. I've seen previous. How's the Plutus testnet thing kind of going? I know it's under construction, and we have to manage people's expectations, right? Like, it's going to take time before the smart contracts are released, and we really don't want to guess at it. I've guessed at numbers before, but how's that going? Is the private still kind of under construction, and you're bug hunting and sorting things out over there on Plutus?
Yeah, actually, it's going to happen in less than a week. So, and again, I am not going to comment on delivery times because this is not part of my job. Instead, I'm focusing on product and understanding what developers and users need. But yeah, it's under construction, and we can't wait to actually see activity going on there, because that is going to give us for the first time like the excitement that you get after building something for more than a year now. Yeah, some people even more than 2 years.
Yeah.
So you could imagine that excitement. Also, let me comment on what you just said about developers and the way humans are creative. Basically, what we have here is like very high incentives to build something that will help a large number of people on the Cardano network. And then we have something like a programming language as powerful as Haskell that is allowing people to be as creative as they want. We can't even imagine what's going to be possible. And people try to actually compare Cardano smart contracts with Ethereum smart contracts, but it's not even similar. So we are gonna probably see some stuff that did not happen on Ethereum. Similarly, on Ethereum, we had like the concept of flash loans. That was something new. It never happened ever before. In traditional finance, you did not actually have such a concept. I'm expecting more things like that to happen, and yeah, that's going to be very exciting to see.
Yeah, that will be. And I've heard that there's about 32 types of contracts that have been defined throughout the world, and there's researchers working on what a smart contract or what a contract looks like and trying to build it into templates so that when developers want to start building contracts, they can look at the IOG research papers that describe smart contracts on Cardano to have a better idea going into it, so they can make higher quality smart contracts from the beginning, right? Instead of this kind of hunt and peck and, code fast and break it. So instead of doing that, you would have information that creates a higher quality smart contract. At least that's what I've read so far. Now, I would like to bring up a few examples. We've had other people. We had Mark from Occam on this podcast before. We've had Otash from CardStarter on the podcast before. They have really interesting projects. They started their projects by deploying the ERC20 tokens on the Ethereum network. Okay. And then they each have kind of a different approach. I don't know exactly how the approach is going to work, but they described it in general of how they're going to create that value that the ERC20 tokens hold on Ethereum that they currently created, and bring that value to Cardano. There's different approaches. For example, with CardStarter, there will be a mechanism to send it through the website, and it will be, like you said, your ERC20 to their website, and it will return a Cardano native asset to you on the Cardano side. And then with Occam, the concept is, it might have changed, but at the time, it was there will be exchanges online, and you decide which network to send it out on. You can say, I'm going to send my asset out on the Cardano network, or I will send my asset out on the Ethereum network. Both of them seemed like pretty reasonable approaches. Do you have any suggestions for developers who are doing things like that? They're working with ERC20 on Ethereum, and then they're eventually going to deploy their products on Cardano, either in parallel or a separate product that's compatible. Do you have any recommendations for developers of what they should be doing going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I did give some suggestions to a few companies that were actually planning to build on Ethereum, that are today building on Cardano. But in general, I mean, you should focus, in my opinion, on one chain, and Cardano is different. So you should look at how native tokens work, and you should try to leverage the tools that are out there already. Instead of like trying to think about bridging Ethereum and Cardano, I would try to think how to actually leverage the ERC20 converter for that, because one of the things that we have on the roadmap is to actually allow people to take that value that is on Ethereum and bring it to Cardano, because we want to fuel the DeFi apps that are going to be running on Cardano. So I would focus on one chain and try to like tackle one problem at a time, and try to focus on the value prop, like of what I really want to do on that chain.
Okay. Now, I think Singularity Net is going to be using the ERC20 converter with AGI, and you're the main developer with the ERC20 converter. I'm assuming with other people as well. What can you tell us about the ERC20 converter? And I know you touched on it in Cardano 360 from February, I believe, the previous Cardano 360. Can you tell us any more today?
Well, I'm not sure how much I can disclose, but in general, a lot of progress is being made, and in general, we are looking also at completely decentralizing the ERC20 converter. We are also looking at bringing more tokens on the platform, also larger partners, which definitely I cannot disclose here. But Yeah, a lot of progress going on the ERC20 converter. I'm really happy with the progress that we made in the past several months.
Okay. I mean, that's fair enough. There's a lot of times we have people in the podcast and you can't disclose what's upcoming because it's either business sensitive, usually is a good way to put it. And we don't want to delve into business sensitive related stuff. Plus, there's going to be a Cardano 360 later this month coming up in about a week. In about a week, it'll be a Cardano 360. And there might be other updates coming out. We'll leave those to the right people to put out that information.
Yeah.
So y'all keep your eye out for that Cardano 360.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that people don't understand is it's very hard to actually keep track of what I can say and what I can't say because so much is happening internally that it's not like every time that someone mentions something, okay, this is not public, this is public, and so on. So yeah. It's easier just to let the right people actually announce those things.
Yeah, you got to stick to the stuff that's in your umbrella, the native assets and the smart contracts, and specifically what applies to those. I understand. It's a lot of people. My goodness, I saw the IOG has over 80 job applications open on the website. 280 people at IOG now, growing massively. It's incredible. And then plus you have people at Emergo and you now have technical and developer type people at the Cardano Foundation. So it's a lot of moving parts, a lot of different people. What is the latest information? It's kind of hard to get to, but we try to get that out here. Let me see. So smart contracts. I had a few other things we noted on here. What should users be aware of? What should a user be aware of in the difference between Ethereum and Cardano smart contracts? So if I'm a user, I'm assuming it's going to be relatively transparent to me as a user. I log into a website or to access a smart contract. Any major differences I should be aware of as the user, buying, selling, trading tokens, NFTs, or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, there are those are not actually on the smart contract layer. Those are more on the wallets layer. But what I can say is that Plutus gives more power to whoever is building the wallet. So we expect also innovation on that front, and we are seeing great teams actually working on that. And those are like small startups that recently started, but I trust that they're going to make great progress based on what they did in the past.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are people, I have spoke with people who are developing wallets, which is very important to have multiple options, decentralized options for wallets. The critical thing to watch out for is it a legit wallet, right? And so I'll be talking to those folks in the coming months and seeing if they can come over onto Cardano Live and tell us about their wallets and how they maintain the security of those wallets. Like, putting in a private, putting in your secret passphrase into a third-party wallet has risks associated with it. But as long as you understand those risks and that the wallet is secure or not secure, you'll be able to make better decisions. So we'll touch on that.
Also, it's important. Also, it's important to understand that the wallet for the smart contract execution needs like different things than the normal wallet that you use to actually hold your funds. So innovation in that space is going to also be coming in and will be necessary because as you start to use smart contracts, you have like different ways of authenticating users. Either that's like something like MetaMask where you have like a web extension, but it can also be like different other touch points with the user where the user might grant permission for a dApp for a particular time frame or ideas around that. Those will be the touch points that actually allow us to onboard like the next million users on the platform, and that allows us to actually scale greatly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A good comparison would be people like to use their Ledger Live wallet to store Ethereum ERC20 tokens. But in order to trade them on Uniswap and SushiSwap, they have to use MetaMask or another type of wallet in order to interact with the dApp. So we're going to have to see stuff like that coming to Cardano so that people can interact with the dApps that they're interested in. Another good example is like the Saturn network on Ethereum Classic has the Saturn wallet that you can use. And then when you go to their URL, the wallet interacts with the smart contracts. Now, the smart contracts are entirely decentralized. but it's good to use the wallet, the appropriate wallet. Make sure you have the correct wallet and you're at the correct website that connects you to smart contracts. But in reality, you don't even need the wallet. You can interact with the smart contract in other ways. But the custom wallets make it easier for the users to get to those smart contracts, as opposed to how a developer could do it with a command line. So
Yeah.
it's something for important to be aware of. Yeah. All right. If people have any questions, let me know over in the chat. I'm going to scan the chat for some questions. I saw a few there. There was one question, kind of hard to answer right now, from Ricky Ricardo. He says, when compared to the upcoming Ethereum 2.0, what advantages or innovative features would we find on the Cardano smart contract chain to attract developers? Now, the only way to answer that question is you would have to have an understanding of how the Ethereum 2.0s are going to work. I think it's already similar. There's supposed to be some compatibilities. What do you think, Vuk? Is there any way to answer that question right now?
Yeah, I mean, again, Ethereum and Cardano choose different paths. Like Ethereum is trying to get to the 2.0 and we are trying to get to smart contracts. So yeah, it's hard to actually answer this question, but I'm just going to say we choose different paths, and that will imply that different outcomes will come out.
Okay. And we'll see how the performance is. We'll see how the performance and the details as the Ethereum 2.0 is deployed, because you can make roadmaps, but it doesn't mean you can always hit exactly what it says or when you say you're going to hit it. And there was another question from Ricky. Thank you, Ricky. What are the main differences between the smart contracts? Okay, that was very similar. What are the main unique features to attract developers? I guess what we could say is on Cardano, okay, to paraphrase Ricky's question, on Cardano, what are the main and unique features that would attract developers? Anything you can think of? You already touched on a few.
Yeah, sure. So everyone thinks that actually we focus a lot on making the development experience better and trying to make developers' life as easy as possible and build a lot of tools for that. We're also supporting the community to actually build those tools, and we are insisting on that. And we understand how important that infrastructural layer is for the network and the health of the ecosystem. But at the same time, the most powerful thing that is going to onboard developers is incentives. You have such a large community, and because of you guys, developers are going to start building, and they are doing that. And we are seeing like incredible traction on the Pioneers program. We are seeing great progress with the partners. Why? Because everyone wants to build for that community. So we might make the life of developers easier over time, but that's not what's going to dictate whether someone is going to build something on Cardano or not. What I can guarantee you is that you're not going to have like 1 million people using Cardano and no developers building stuff for that 1 million people. That's for sure. So yeah, I think in general, like the way that we architected the ecosystem and the way the economies work, people will be building stuff because they want to like serve the needs of those users. And also, like when you are building ecosystems and products, you try not to put yourself in the position where you need to build something, otherwise it's not going to work. We are not in that position. Otherwise, my life would be much more stressful, and Charles as well. But we are not in the spot where we need to do something in order to actually make the network successful. Because of the sheer number of users, things are just balancing out as they need, because developers are just looking for those needs of the users. And there are so many opportunities for developers. And with the like material that we're pushing out, and with the compounding effect that the number of developers on the network will have, because those developers that learn will also be publishing content, we are going to see like the progress of dApps being built just accelerate.
Yeah. You know, that brings up a good point. Ethereum at this point in time is experiencing very high gas fees due to network congestion. And there's good and bad to that. The good is people are using it. The bad is it got too expensive for the average person, right? It's at some points during the day and some points during the week. what's the demand like now that you're seeing? It sounds to me like you're seeing a lot of demand from developers. Are we going to start seeing, this is kind of hard to answer, but we'll try. Are we going to start seeing congestion, like the network can't handle the load based on the number of developers that are currently here? What do you think?
Yeah, so what we need to understand about the Cardano network is that we are not relying just on the transactions of the smart contracts. We have transactions of tokens, and then we have transactions for smart contracts, and those are separate. So when you have use cases most of the time that are leveraging native tokens, you're going to be transferring native tokens, but that's not like using the bandwidth of smart contracts. Well, that's not the case on the Ethereum network. So this is like something that is not that well understood. But this is, in my opinion, what's going to make the network much more efficient, because most of the use cases don't actually need smart contracts. They need simple transfers. And if you look at the Ethereum network and you look at what the transactions were actually doing, most of those were actually simple transfers. But you had so much overhead for those smart contracts to be executed, because those needed to be in a smart contract. Why? Because the ERC20 contract is a contract. So if you want to move tokens that are a contract, you need to execute a contract. And because of that, you have a lot of overhead. We don't have that.
You know, Vuk, you just gave me a really interesting thought. I'm going to have to do some research. You know, recently Elon Musk has made a lot of noise and activity on Twitter and on social media and on Reddit about Doge, right? And the amount of power Doge uses. And Doge is a proof of work system, but it kind of runs concurrently on top of Litecoin. It's kind of like in addition to Litecoin for its proof of work security, right? And they started talking about efficiencies. Now, I've heard a few times efficiency. Cardano is efficient, right? And some news article did this random statement. I don't think they really did their homework, and they tried to say that Doge is more power efficient than Cardano. And I said, well, that's a stretch. There's probably some magic number shifting around in there to come up with those answers, right? But now that I think about it, based on what you just described, Cardano token transfers are separate from the smart contract. So it's way more efficient. If I just want to send a native asset, I can send a native asset, and it doesn't mean a smart contract has to do computations. But in Ethereum, when you send an ERC20, the ERC20 is actually a smart contract, and you're causing the network to do computations. So I take it that's where the efficiencies lie. Yes?
No, actually, like those computation, that computation is actually very small compared to proof of work. So to actually execute a contract, those are being executed in milliseconds. So it's not that much. And the reason why Cardano is so much more efficient is because of proof of stake. And if you have any other like proof of work consensus blockchain, it can't in any way be like more efficient than a proof of stake one, because you need to do some work, and that work is like thousands, even probably tens of thousands, even more times more energy consuming than what you need to actually execute the contract, because that computation is very small and very fast, so it cannot use a large amount of energy. Now, native tokens are efficient in terms of like the complexity that needs to be handled on the software layer, which is very important for us to actually make it more scalable, and in order for us to be able to work on the performance improvements. But that's not as impactful on the energy as proof of work is compared to proof of stake that Cardano has.
Okay. All right, so let's going back over to the native assets and the smart contracts. I'm assuming there's some efficiencies gained by having them separated. I'm assuming it also makes it easier to upgrade the blockchain, what we commonly call a hard fork, but in Cardano, a better description is a Cardano chain upgrade. So if I want to, if I were to implement an upgrade that modifies the native assets, it doesn't mean it has to affect or break the smart contract side or the Plutus side, right? Because they're separated.
Yeah, but you would need to actually deploy that new native tokens, which is new. So you need to upgrade that token, but that will not actually have any effect on the smart contract. The smart contract would be able to interact with your native token if that's the way it was designed.
Okay. And one question I had seen a couple times in social media, some developers have already deployed NFTs, and I'll just call it like, let's say it's a static NFT. Okay, it's just a thing on the blockchain, and some developers have already just deployed tokens, native assets on Cardano. Now, once smart contracts do come out later this year, are they going to have to convert them, or maybe not? Maybe some of them have to be converted. How's that going to work?
Yeah, depending on what they want to do, right? They might not want to convert them, but they would need to actually implement more logic on the smart contract that is actually allowing both old tokens and new tokens to be used. But that also, of course, depends on the use case. You can also like build a smart contract that as an input gets like the old token and as an output has the new token, which might be more efficient because then you would not need to actually carry out the complexity involved with handling two types of tokens on the smart contract.
Okay.
But of course, also depends what's the upgrade on the token, right? If the upgrade is minimal, it might be possible to actually do it with a similar logic on the smart contract side. If the upgrade is substantial, then it might make sense that you actually upgrade it. Maybe you want to add additional data to the NFT. You might want to upgrade it.
Okay. All right. So the general concept here is, and I'm going to refer back to some previous Cardano 360s. In one Cardano 360, you had run an ERC20 through the ERC20 converter, and out the other end came a native asset. Now, if someone is doing that, if let's say AGI runs their AGI through the ERC20 converter, if they need additional features on Cardano that are not available on Ethereum, is that the point in time? Can they like edit the token or the native asset so that it has the correct features after it goes through the converter? Is that possible, or is it not necessary?
Of course, it's possible to upgrade like the features that were on the previous network because the token is being minted on Cardano fresh. So when it's being minted, you can do whatever you want. Now, what you can do is when you mint a token, because it's on the chain, on the ledger, that of course cannot be changed, but this is because of the properties of the blockchain. It's not because it's hard to implement or whatever. So because of that, you have like different models where you have like upgrade mechanisms that you're leveraging to actually upgrade tokens if you want. And this is something usual on every other blockchain out there. And this is mainly because of the main capability of the blockchain to be immutable. So you need to actually take care of that scenario separately.
Okay, thank you, Vuk. And we have a question from Ninja Hankin, directly related to this part of the podcast. And Ninja Hankin asks, when the ERC20 converter, this is time and date, so this might be hard to answer. We might not be able to answer this. When the ERC20 converter goes live, will all ERC20 tokens be ready for conversion, and will there be a fee to convert it? I'm assuming you can convert any ERC20. It doesn't mean the developer or the people working with it will, but what do you think?
Yeah, from the technical standpoint, we could allow every ERC20 token to be converted, but we are trying to actually put a bit more thought into making sure that only the tokens that are worth converting are actually available, and that we do some basic due diligence, and that only the valuable tokens are on the Cardano network. Because basically we are building a bridge and we are filtering out what we want to have on the Cardano network, and we're making sure that only what's useful for our users is there. And of course, we are listening to users, and if users want to have some tokens, of course we're going to list them. But we are not just going to open the door and let anything go through that bridge.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Vuk, and thanks for answering that question. We'll touch on that briefly right before the end of the podcast as well. I have an example that we'll look at. Thank you for the question, Ninja Hankin. There was a question following the Allegro hard fork in December 2020. How much metadata can be attached to transactions? Is it enough to embed QR codes, etc.? I think it's 8 kilobytes or 16 kilobytes. It's 8 kilobytes. I don't remember.
Yeah, I need to check that, but the QR code can be very efficient. Now it depends how you encode it, right? So
yeah, it's in the
answer that question.
Yeah, it's in the kilobyte range. This would be a good question for some developers like Martin and the folks who've been working on that. But it's Andrew Westberg might be able to answer that. They've been messing around with that, Seaborn hex and ways it's compressed. So I think it's between 8 kilobytes and 16 kilobytes. I can't remember what that one is.
Yeah. Also, Rick, something that I think would be, yeah, since you're on that question.
Oh, we'll touch it. Yeah. What were you saying? I'll come back to this question.
Yeah, so in general, since the question was about Revuto, I think it's important that we comment in general on the state of. Oh yeah, so I'm actually an advisor on Revuto.
Okay.
But the point in general that I want to discuss in general, since Revuto is having incredible traction, and of course, since I know the team. They are a well-reputed team from the region, and they are doing some good work. But we are also seeing some other use cases explode. So I think in general, it's important to look at what's going on the network and make sure that everyone is well aware in what they are investing. For Revuto, of course, you have some guarantees that you can look at the team, you can look at the distribution of tokens, you can look at what they did in past, you can look at the social coverage that they have, you can look at so many things their presence in the community, and you can also talk to their team if you want. But we are seeing also so many other use cases where this is not present, where you just have a landing page and people are running to actually invest in the protocol. That's something that in general I think we should avoid. I think that because now it's also important to actually try to cover why this is happening right now. And we're coming back to the fact that since the ecosystem is new and developers are very incentivized, it's not only developers who are incentivized to actually try to do stuff on the chain. It's also malicious players, because you have a lot of value that is being locked on the network. And when you have so much value, of course, many things pop up. And now one is the developers that are going to be building something, but the second one is also those malicious players. So yeah,
so
if we can.
Oh, you wait. I'll bring that screen share back up. I got it right here. Do you want me to bring it back up?
Yeah. So I just need to answer the second part of the question. So
okay,
what Revuto is about? Yeah. So basically, Revuto allows you to manage your subscriptions. And now also, let's get back to the fact that why Revuto was so interesting to me to actually help the team is because they were actually trying to tackle the problem. They were not trying to use smart contracts. They were not trying to actually wait for the tech to do something. They actually tackled the problem first in a centralized way, and then they started looking for ways to actually do it in a decentralized way. And what they did, actually, they leveraged native tokens to build most of the stuff that they have right now. And basically everything is built on top of native tokens without actually having to wait for smart contracts. And this brings us back to the fact that you can build so much right now without actually waiting for Gauguin or waiting for the Alonso milestone, because you have native tokens, and people forget about the power of that, because everyone is so used to smart contracts on the Ethereum side. Now, What Revuto did is basically they have like two tokens. They have a governance token and they have a stable coin. Because what they are doing is they are allowing you to stake your Revo tokens and to get some allowance of stable coins that you can spend on your subscriptions. So basically, I can, an example of that would be I can stake like 500 USD of, 500 euros of Revo tokens, and I would get an allowance of around 200, 250 euros that I can use for my subscriptions. So in that way, I would not need to actually sell the crypto. I could hold my crypto and I can just pay for the transactions in fiat as I want. So that's shortly about the platform.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. So I guess what I'll do is maybe have a podcast later on to go over Revuto as an example. Okay. Because what I don't do in Cardano Live, I don't promote platforms and I do not accept tokens for promotion. So I don't do that. But what I do is I have the pioneers and the people working on the cutting edge. When they create a new and interesting idea, I will have them come on to present their idea as an example, right? It's not to promote the idea, but it's to show the rest of the world how their idea is working. So maybe we'll have Revuto come back for another podcast in the future. There are a few other questions. We're going to wrap it up because, Vuk, it is a beautiful Friday afternoon, Friday evening on your side of the world. And we want to get it wrapped up so people can get back to their happy Fridays. So I'll touch on a few more questions. We'll call it a day. Thank you, Andrea Majik, for the question there. We did have one from Scarlisle that said, would the ERC20s be fine-tuned to run better? And that would be after they are run through an ERC20 converter. Could or would the asset run better on Cardano than Ethereum?
Definitely, because they are native. Now, there are so many abstractions involved in running ERC20 contracts on Ethereum. So it's not something that we are proud because it's so easy on the Cardano network because that's on the ledger. Now, whether they're fine-tuned, I wouldn't even call them fine-tuned. It's a completely different thing when it's on Cardano and it's being used the same as every other native token that is going to be run on Cardano. So it's going to be as optimal as it can get. And the nice thing is that we have like the opportunity to actually improve that over time because we know how the structure of that native token, and we can like improve the pieces that are around that abstraction and make it run perfectly for every native token.
I like that answer. It would be like comparing a Porsche to a horse and buggy. That's me. That's just me. Thanks, Vuk. So it sounds like, yes, it would run more efficiently. And Charles John, last few questions, we'll wrap it up. Will the fees in ETH will be in ETH or ADA for the converter? That's a good question. I mean, is it going to be on both ends or what? How's that going to work?
For the converter, yeah. The fees will be on, now depends which conversion we are talking about. Like, is it Ethereum to Cardano or Cardano to Ethereum? If it's Ethereum to Cardano, you of course need to pay to execute the contract that is going to lock the tokens or to transfer the tokens to an address, because that's how you actually move that value that is going to be minted on Cardano, because the main point of the converter is to always have a one-to-one peg, and we want to make sure that that is always fulfilled. So that's one case. On the other side, we're still wrapping up the final implementation that we're not going to have, so I'm not going to disclose that.
Okay, thank you for that. And I will take the last question, and then I'll give you the last words, and we'll wrap it up. The last question, I'll answer this one. This is from Gabriel Koffler. And Gabriel asks, is there a fixed date for the Alonzo upgrade? And the answer is no. And I'll give you an example. Currently, there was a previous question. Currently, the smart contracts are running in a private test net, which is undergoing fine-tuning and modifications to really get it right in a private test net. That's going to go on for a few more weeks.
in the coming weeks, several weeks out, there will be a public test net. Then months and months out, sometime later this year, it will be on the main net. So currently we are in the private test net stage. Nobody in Cardano and nobody in crypto will give a fixed date. It's just a general practice in crypto. Don't give a fixed date because you never know what kind of hurdles you're going to run into. I know some projects out there try to give fixed dates, and then what they do is they say, let's say they gave a date and said July, right? Then they're going to race to hit July, and they're not going to get it right. So what's more important than the dates is getting it right. So we don't have a fixed date. We'll probably know more with the Cardano 360 next week. So keep your eye out for Cardano 360 coming up next week. So that's my answer. I hope I answered your question, Gabriel. Great question. Thank you for that. Thank you, everyone in the audience. I appreciate all your questions here and participating with Cardano Live. Vuk, I'm going to open the floor to you and wrap it up. Do you have anything you would like to tell the audience before we call it a day?
Yeah, maybe to stress a bit more on the fact that the ecosystem that we have built is not centered around features. It's centered around like the community that we have and the people that started developing dApps. So no matter no matter how many features we get out, that's not going to have as much of an effect that the community is currently having. And those incentives are going to dictate where the network is going to get. So in general, I would love to invite people to think more about those incentives and the ecosystem as a whole, rather than just what feature is going to get out and whether that's going to be like the killer feature that is going to make Cardano better than Ethereum. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vuk. Thank you for all your hard work that you put into Cardano. Thanks for building cool toys for people to play with and build upon. Everyone appreciates it. And thank you to the viewers. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below. And y'all have a great Friday. Y'all take care. Bye-bye. And thank you, Vuk. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.